Boys, it's Halloween time.
Ooh.
It's time for the spookies. So I want to talk to you guys. I actually really don't like horror games, but I do want to talk about our favorite horror games.
All right.
So we compiled a little bit of a list, but I want to kind of go down like...
Can I just clarify something
Yes.
before we get going? Is Halloween a big thing in Canada?
No, I brought it back after living
Did
here
you?
for many years.
Look,
I went
Halloween's a lot
home
of
to
fun.
visit, and I
It's
was
one of
like,
my
y'all
favorite
aren't going to
holidays.
believe this Halloween thing. It's crazy.
Oh, yeah. It's one of my favorite holidays.
You take off your moose skin jackets and you wear things that are less warm, and you pretend to be an American.
You dress as hockey players from the other team. Very scary.
From Team Russia. Yeah.
And you all get maple candies.
Is your costume ready for this year?
No, not at all. But yeah, I want to talk a little bit about kind of like what you guys think makes a great horror game, because for me, I am so not into the idea of feeling tension and stress and legitimate fear while playing a video game. Like, that's just not the feeling I want from it. But every now and then I'll play something really, really great that makes me just hunger for more stuff like that. Like Silent Hill 2 is the game that made me realize, man, horror in games is incredible, and I feel awful.
What are your thoughts on horror movies then? Like, is that a different
Same
beast
deal.
for you? Okay,
I
so
think-
same kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird because I don't like Friday the 13th stuff because I feel like it's just mindless. Like, it's, oh, people are getting killed. Like, it's not interesting and it's not scary. But something like It Follows, which is deeply unsettling to me and just constantly, like, it's a movie that just constantly makes you nervous.
You're unsettled by being followed by your naked father who wants
right.
to kill you.
Exactly. And just not
But what about the
knowing.
movie?
Har har. Nice. But the idea of not knowing is incredibly terrifying, and that's why I think something like Slender is great, right? Like, you get a little bit of a notification, like you have a brief understanding of, like, something bad's about to happen, go the other way. That idea is just haunting to me, and it makes me super uncomfortable. But it's effective, and it's good
So
at what it's doing.
my thoughts are kind of similar to yours in both movies and games. Is that what I think makes a really good horror game or a good horror movie is atmosphere, right? And being able to, and the story is super important to horror. And I'm not a huge fan of Friday the 13th. I like the campy value of it, quite,
Sure.
figuratively and literally, I guess. The sitting, being at the camp. But
I got it.
hey yo. Oh, everybody just didn't laugh because it was.
Oh, thank you. I'll be here all night.
But I do think, to be able to make something that, like good sci-fi isn't just about being in space, right? It's about having a great story wrapped around it, or having a good tale that actually puts something back on what's going on in society today. And I think good horror can actually do a lot of that same thing.
I think there are three elements that go along with that. I want to go first back to what Mitch said about Silent Hill 2. And to steal something from, I think it was Scott Sharkey said years ago, maybe Jen Frank, a game that makes you uncomfortable with your own sexuality is terrifying.
Interesting.
Silent
Every
Hill
game for
2
me.
is largely about making, you are literally like walking through just giant vaginas. You are finding out about your role, your place in a marriage and in a broken relationship. And you're fighting nurses that, their faces are all messed up, but their bodies are still kind of shapely and they writhe around on the floor. And there's, of course, the whole Blue Velvet, Pyramid Head scene. And
Yep.
it's all about being uncomfortable with your own sexuality. That is a frightening thing. That's one thing I think makes a great horror game because it's interactive. It can fool with you, just like It Follows. It gets inside you someplace in one of your great kind of almost universal human insecurities. Second is something where, like, dread, and again, I think I'm stealing this from one up, an old show, is an active element in the gameplay, like where dread is keeping you from playing well. That's another good element.
Yeah.
And then
Like
finally,
when you freak out playing Alien
Exactly,
Isolation, you're just like, I
you're
jumped
afraid to
and I
walk
was afraid.
forward because you're freaking out. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's actually interfering with how well you play. I remember playing Resident Evil 2 when I was a kid, and literally like throwing the controller up in the air, screaming, and dying because I dropped it from a jump scare. Finally, humor. I think humor works wonderfully, wonderfully well in horror because the line between like screaming and laughing is really, really close.
Well, you need levity to kind of accentuate something that's deeply scary.
Like Wes Craven is very much, in that vein. And I think he does some great stuff. Clive Barker does some of that stuff.
Edgar Wright, John Carpenter. Yeah, I mean, Edgar Wright, think about just about every Edgar Wright quote-unquote horror movie. When it gets scary, you love these people already because they made you laugh.
Do you know in The Thing, talking to people from Norway, having some Norwegian friends, in The Thing, if you speak Norwegian, the plot of the movie is given away right at the beginning. I do think
Is that true?
was. Oh yeah,
That's
they
super
basically
funny.
they go to the Norwegian base and they basically say, there's some weird alien creature out here. Beware, everybody! You should get out of here. And then they just like then
isn't the guy like when the dog runs up to the guy, the Norwegian guy shouting like, "That's not a dog, that's an alien creature that can look like anything."
Exactly. So pretty much,
funny.
if you're Norwegian, like the plot of the movie right when you start. So I think that was kind of a nod at humor too, right? Because I agree, John Carpenter does kind of play around with things like that.
Oh yeah.
I think another thing for me too that kind of falls in the category of horror are games like. Clive Barker's Undying did it really well. I thought PT did it really well, but it's kind of a sense of insanity, right? Like things change slightly, and your brain knows it shouldn't actually have changed, but it's not necessarily a huge scare or anything like that. Like you walk by a painting and it's different than you walk by it the first time you walk by, and you come back and you're like, wait a second, I could have sworn it was like that. And then again, you come back a little bit later and it's even a little different. You're like, what is going on?
It's like the layout of the mannequins.
I literally feel like
Condemned.
I'm going crazy. Yeah, exactly.
Like you turn and you look back and it's like
and
Blank in Doctor Who, and it's like they're closer. What is happening?
Yeah,
and this doesn't.
BioShock did that too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And stepping out of the PC realm, Eternal Darkness did that so well.
Yeah,
I mean,
what a great game.
It is deleting your save file. It's just like, do you remember that, the whole blue screen of death?
That's real
one?
fear.
But the kind of stuff that your brain knows that things should happen in a certain way, but then your expectations are totally changed.
Yes,
and that is scary as hell to me. And again, PT did that where you would go, wait, that picture had something different in there. That clock was different, and then of course it had some scares in the bathroom too. Through the door, some jump scares.
But
too.
beyond the video,
just a little twinges.
I'm not a big horror game guy, but the one that kind of sticks out to me as being like my most memorable horror game is probably the original Fear.
And they played around a lot with that too.
They did.
Like Elma coming up,
can't handle
Alma coming up.
weird little
Tickle
kids.
Me Elma. Yeah. Like the way they kind of separated out like the actual people that you're fighting. Like most of the things you fight in that game are just clones.
Yeah.
Very
straightforward shooter kind of stuff.
Yeah. Toward the end, there's some supernatural things, but they're not very scary. The things that are scary in that game are the kind of mind tricks it plays on you. Having Alma pop up, like there was one place in particular where it's like you come to a ladder, a ladder going down.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So you look down. It's like, okay, I'll climb down there. So the animation of you climbing down the ladder is you turn around like you would face the ladder and climb down, and then you turn around and Alma's right there.
Yeah.
And it's like, holy crap.
Thanks.
But all the things that are scary in that game can't actually hurt you.
Right,
which is
just scary.
Yeah, which I really like how that worked.
Now, there's two others that come to mind there. Another good hallmark of a lot of good horror is sound design. A good horror game, you think about something like Enemy Zero, where you've got an invisible foe, and all you can do is hear them on the sensor. And
Amnesia's really good about that too, right? Like the water thing.
Oh, gosh, I forgot about
where
that.
It's all sound.
Oh. And so, sound design is really important.
Especially if you're wearing headphones. Like, sometimes playing those games, I just have to take the headphones off. I'm like, I can't deal with this anymore.
System Shock 2 with headphones, no one should ever do. Like, that's just not okay. No. Because System Shock is more cyberpunky. System Shock 2 is a legit horror game. And genuinely frightening in places. I mean, Shodan's scary as all, and the fact that it gets all weird and biological. But that game had, for its time, I remember, pretty frightening sound design. But another one, a convergence of sound design, and then something else you can pull off is inserting horror into a non-horror game, which can be the most frightening thing in a game of all because you don't know what's coming. My favorite example of that would be Minecraft. Because Minecraft is a game about tedium and the mundane in a lot of ways. Comfortable tedium. I'm down there, I'm doing my mine, I'm building my stuff, I'm crafting my
until ...
and then just kink, tink, tink, and a wall bursts open, and I hear and spiders come pouring out at my face when I'm just doing my little mining, and I didn't hear them. I have screamed in the middle of the night playing Minecraft and woken my wife up because I'll get lazy, and you hear that screaming, that in the wall behind you. You're just like, what? And down is dark. And going, I like that too.
Because of the atmosphere, one of the scariest horror games I ever played wasn't actually a horror game. It was Gone Home. Because I was waiting for something horrible to happen in that game.
Yep.
I was like, oh my God, when's the jump scare coming? When's it going to turn out to be supernatural?
And I don't think that's accidental. I think there is
absolutely.
Steve
I think they did a great job.
Who made that game at Fulbright, like he talked openly about this is not a horror game, there's no ghosts, there's no threats, nothing bad will ever happen to you. But there is something really consciously, deliberately unsettling about being in a dark home. Like
Yeah.
there's an option
in a
when you play it.
rainstorm. That's
And
empty.
Yeah, and you can make it an option like open all doors and turn on all lights.
Yeah.
So that you just don't have that anxiety of like what's going to happen when I turn on this
Well,
light.
again, I think it has to do with that playing with expectations.
Yeah.
as
Well, and they
right?
do 3 things with that too. I mean, one of my favorite games of the last few years. They do so much. You know, first you've got the weird stuff. If you don't know it's not a horror game, you got to find the pentagram in the closet,
Right.
or you go into that one room with they do the spring-loaded cat thing, and the light bulb bursts out in,
that's
in
right.
that little crawl space full of weird cryptic notes. So they fool with you there.
And they talk about the Ouija board.
Right,
And
exactly.
Yeah.
Then they pull out
There's
to the
lots
next
of, like,
step
little
where there's
cultist stuff.
then there's the fact that there was
Which is what teens do, right?
You find the legacy of abuse and potential suicide or drug abuse and other
That
things
just got dark.
right that are there in the story hidden, and when you encounter them it's unsettling. And finally, this one of the reasons I think Gone Home is brilliant, and this is possibly the most truly horrifying moment I've ever experienced in a video game, was playing Gone Home, and Gone Home's house is designed in such a way you can approach it almost any way you want, and I think that's part of the brilliance. Is there's no scripted stuff. It's just, hey, you come in from a different angle. The story's going to unfold in a different way, but it all still makes sense. I walked into a closet and found the button to open a secret passage about 5 minutes into Gone Home, completely by accident, which meant
great.
I played from the basement and worked my way up. Because of that, I found the book that the son had written that the father rejected in the basement very early on, instead of doing it the other way around, which I think a lot of people did. So I find this book, and the father's, he's so proud, but his father has said to him, this is trash. You can do better. And you find that 2 hours later, I've almost forgotten about it. I've gotten to know this whole family. I've gotten to see the fact the father's disappointed with every aspect of his life, that he's always trying to live up to these lost expectations. I walk into his office, and
you
there
the office
I
even
saw
then.
the
Oh,
office
wow.
almost last. That's just it. I see this first. The
Man.
office is almost the last room in the house I visit. And over
up
his
there, yeah.
desk, it just says, "You can do better," in huge handwritten letters. And I almost felt sick. I did feel sick. I was like, this guy has been living his whole life hearing that echo in his head, and the tragedy of everything I'd found just came crashing down. I don't know if I'm doing this justice, but man, that screwed with me in a way no game ever has.
That's really fascinating.
Yeah, I think just the atmosphere of that game alone is what made that so great. I mean, to me, I was expecting, even after playing that whole game through, I was expecting something horrible to happen when I opened up the attic, right? I was still waiting
Right.
for that horror. I was still waiting for that
everybody
scare,
is
right?
expecting a bad thing.
Yeah, it was so smart. I mean, they designed really well designed.
So you
atmosphere.
guys didn't find the body?
Damn it, Dan.
Now there's the weird hidden cat video you can find.
Is that true?
Oh yeah, there's a the video diaries.
Yeah.
There's one that's entirely just cats, and if you put it in, it's cats going meow 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 meow
Oh, yeah,
meow
no, I saw
meow
that
meow
one.
meow.
Yeah, yeah.
It's the most Steve Gaynor thing I've ever heard in my life.